Welcome back, everybody. We have another clock to work on. Anyway, this is a Japanese clock, and my friend Mark says I should buy it, so I figured I'd try this one out. The Japanese clocks are kind of cool in so many words. This one does have a few problems, so let's take a look at it. So on this one here, the glass here is broke, and I was suspecting that this here was a painting on the glass, so I was a bit worried. The trim pieces are popping out of here, and so they're gonna have to be, I'm gonna say, re-glued on. This here I would say was plastic because I see a dent in it right here. This here's metal, and it was popped in, as in possibly dropped. Maybe that's how the glass got broke, but there's a chance I might be taking all this off in order to properly wax and clean these up. I'd like to take these are metal. I'd like to take them off and try to polish them up also. Like I said, it's a Japanese clock. It does have the star in there. This is supposed to have a key that you could unlock, I'm going to guess. Yes, it does have a locking system here, so you'd turn it and lock the door shut. See if that works. Yes, it does. So the only sad thing about this is you can't wind the clock and just set the key inside, because you need the key to unlock the door. So this clock measures approximately 17¼ inches tall, and I won't measure the base. I'll just measure this top part here, which were 9½ inches. Base would be, it does say made in China. On the back side here, you can see that the paper's starting to come off, so I'm going to re-glue that down and protect it the best I can. It does have the Chinese lettering or whatever here, and I'm not sure, but it seems to me each letter means a word. And then over here, it's I'm going to guess translated in English already. You can see how this wood was cut. This is a veneer over this part here. This looks like solid wood where they've glued on and then cut in order to make this round. So here on the door, it's got a clip here, 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 and here, and there's a nail tacked in on them. That way I can get this out. This here is a paper piece, and so the flowers are actually on this paper, so I don't have to worry so much about how am I going to get this painted back on, where it's just actually a picture. And the glass is broke, so I'll see about getting that changed. I'm going to probably take, well, I have to take this one out. I'll probably take this one out too. It's the same way, and that way I can clean up the, I'm sure that's brass around here, and get the glass cleaned as well too. On the glass, you can tell it's old glass. Right through here is kind of like a wave. I know the glass is dirty, but it's kind of a wave in there, and that tells me that this here is the original glass. This one won't be, obviously, because it's broke. So I'm going to start out with taking the nails out. This one and this one don't have a nail on them. This one and this one does. So let's see if we can get those out carefully. That wood is so old and dried out, they're just kind of falling out of there. So we'll straighten these out or lift them up, whichever it's going to take. Yes, lift them up. Oh, that didn't feel good. Some of these are quite soft. And these are soldered in, so it might be a little difficult to get this piece out. Covered the glass, or the dial. See how dirty that is. I don't know if you can see the wave across here or not. Now to carefully take these off. The nails are actually loose. That nail's missing. So they'll look nice shined up. I have this blade, we'll call it. I think it's for decorating cakes with the frosting. This is nice to be able to try to get that underneath and pry just a little bit and get the nails to come loose. And one last nail here, and I think I was wrong. This here is a brass piece also. So what I'll have to do is try to push that little dent out right there. Push that dent in or back out. And so our door's all clean of that, and I think I'll leave the door on possibly. Here's an extra piece that came off this clock somewhere. Let's take these hands off, and this dial is only held on by one screw right now. These are coming off nicely, surprisingly. This needs to be tucked back in because it was so loose. I doubt it was actually turned. It was just probably hanging there. Let's see. 8124. It depends on where you're from or whatever on how you date things. And this is probably when it was cleaned in 1980. This says 71 10-2, 68, 10-30. It's hard telling. And this dial should clean up decent. It's I don't think it's a paper. If it's a paper, it's a waxy type paper. So we can see immediately, that's sad. There's gears and whatnot falling out of this clock. So, like I say, it was treated a little bit rough. This here's bent, which you can straighten that back out. So, realistically, I'm surprised this thing even ticked. I can understand why it wouldn't gong, because this here's the mechanism that causes it to gong. Let's see if we can get that out of there. And this would be a trip wire to get the count wheel to do what it's supposed to do, or get it around to the proper time. I'm hoping all the gears are here. Let's see if we can get that back in, or oh, there's several gears popped in there. This whole side, I'm going to say the whole gong side fell out. There's your warning pins on this one. And the wires, besides being filthy, they all look good. How about that other gear? Now, realistically, why these fell out, I have no idea. Don't know how rough the clock was treated. Oh, I see, it's missing the nut up here to hold the frame in, and possibly because of the tension of the spring, it just let loose. And everything's really rusty in here. That's steel. Will this come off? That normally takes a razor blade to open the, we'll call it the shaft up. Then this should come right out. You can see how bent that is. And it does have that little wire on the top of that to hold it from falling through that little shaft we just opened up. Now the winding spring is wound up all the way, and so I'm not going to take this off right now, because otherwise it'll just spin till that's loosened up. Oh, found another gear. This here's a fan for the speed of the clock, or as it gongs. Besides a little rusty, actually doesn't look bad. So let me get this movement out and we'll take a look at a little bit more on it. So this is proving difficult to come out because the spring is forcing against the case and shoving everything over, and I can't even see the screws at the top. And so I'm going to have to wind this up and block it until I can get the screws out and get this movement out. I was able to get the zip tie on there after I wound it up, and now let's see if I can find those screws. That looks like a tight fit in there. I got the last screw out. There's only 3 in here. And there used to be 4 by the looks of what I see there of the extra holes. So here course, it's bent because it sprung out of there. See if we can get it out the rest of the way. So no pictures for that, so I'm just gonna have to fake it and just make sure everything fits where it's supposed to. So this is the back side. Like I say, you can see quite a bit of rust in here. And I think the first thing you do is let this down. Like I say, there's the nut that's missing. So there's the other nut, another one, another one. This here looks like an A on here. And that's the only other markings I see. So like I say, let this spring down so I can finish this up. And I'm gonna probably go ahead and get some pictures of just the time side. Although, like I say, this is pretty much a guessing game right now of what's how to put it back together again. So to let this down, it has this lever, wire, what are you going to call it, right here that actually goes into the clicker. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop it off the clicker and rest it on top of the clicker, so that way it'll only take one hand to start to wind this up. The clicker will move, but it won't go back, and then you can let it down. I plan on putting a zip tie on there first, because if you don't, this will get big and they'll start throwing your gears out. So don't forget to get your pictures taken. Don't forget to zip tie your spring so you can get it out of here without it damaging everything. I have it sitting on top of the clicker in there. Let's see if it works. There it goes. And pay attention to your zip tie, that it's not too far down. And when you put it on, make sure it's not around anything else. You don't want to let this go too fast or hard, because it'd have a good chance of all of a sudden putting pressure on the end of this and popping that off. Normally your stronger ones, it won't do that, but you don't want to screw around with your springs. Okay, that seems awful loose. So now I can take a few other things off. This lifts up. Move it to the side. Careful with it. And this will, if you're careful, you can get it past, but this here might pop off some of the gears. So take your nuts off and then get that up and try to move it over if you're going to try to take a picture of the gears while they're in their place. Even though you have pictures this way, this is going to help you getting a picture straight on down to see just where those gears really look like compared to the guessing game when you look at it this way. So the three nuts were finger tight. The spring feels like it's still got some power to it, but I did let it down further. So let's see if I tip that gear so I can get it out of there. So it is a very dirty clock. This here, right there, you just pop it out of the hole and you can slide it out. That's to hold this into place. I guess you'd call it a friction washer. And it's kind of bent up, it's not down touching there, so I'm going to guess that needs to be straightened out a bit to get it to do its job instead of wobbling back and forth. So now you can get a picture of what's left. This will all be the time side, and this here of course sits right down in here, but it doesn't go in. You put it in last as you're putting this plate on, because this will not go through the plate. You have to install it different. This will not go through the plate. You have to install it, dropping it down through here. Get it up into the pivot, and then if you hold this, you should be able to get that down, or figure out a way, let it go until, just don't knock your other gears out when you're putting it back together again. So in this movement also, movements are different. This spring here winds this way. This spring here winds this way, which is important to keep them separate, or see if there's a mark on here, something that tells you it's a strike side and the time side. So, because this one's off, obviously no marking on that side, none on this side, but you can look at the clicker and that's going to give you a good idea which way that's supposed to wind. But make it easier for you, just keep this one separated from that one, so that way when you take it off, you'll know which way, or which spring goes to which one and which way to start winding it. And because this whole side fell apart, this here locks on the frame down here, normally just bent around. That's for your gong. They're really dirty. Now this here is normally straight, so whether it got bent when this thing flew apart, I don't know, but more than likely I'm going to straighten this out again, because this should come out and just drop straight with this shaft here. That rust. And again, the spring, like I say, this here peg, That's what you got to watch, that you don't wrap that zip tie around them. This peg is there to let the spring open up once it starts resting on that peg. As it's winding down, it's going to cause the spring to come out of the clock and not keep going in and start hitting your gears and messing them up. Same with this peg here. It's for the spring on this side. This has still got power winding down, and I've already wound it down. So be careful it don't take off on you and start chewing your fingers up. Your picture should help you also by looking at the clicker, which one went to which side, and also where they hooked on. Your pictures should be showing that too. So don't forget to, when you're taking your pictures, why you're taking a picture or how to get the clock back together again. Gives you a great idea. So let me scrub these off in the sink first, and then I'm going to put them into the movement cleaner and clean all the stuff. Kind of polished, not polished. So examining this picture a little bit more, this here flower with the leaves and everything is actually cut out. And I'm not sure if they glued it onto the glass yet or not. But if you look on the other side, you see right there, it's like it was plastered in there onto the glass. And so there's a chance I might have to, let's say, do the same. You can see the outline here of the picture. So let's see what I come up with. Like I say, the glass is broke. So this is a picture that's in here, the glass and whatnot. And as you see now, for sure, it's broke. What you gotta do is, it's got this one here soldered on. They're soldered on like this. You gotta unsolder these in order to get the glass out. And I only took out 3 of them because the 4th one seems to be soldered in a little bit different and possibly harder to get out. And it doesn't make any difference because this here, once it's out, will slide out. So you measure that around to get your proper circle. And my brother cut and ground down the sides a little bit so it'll fit right in here. And this ring is smaller than the dial ring. And then what you need to do is go online and get yourself a picture that you approve of that will go on the inside. So this is the one I chose because it's a looks like a watercolor type picture. And what you're going to do is you're going to glue this on, which I plan on using that tacky glue. And once it's glued on there, I plan on making, I do believe they call it gesso. And the gesso will be put over this whole thing, kind of like the back side of this glass here that has the picture. And so that way everything's white. Once that's done, I'm gonna guess that feels dry, the old one, but I'm gonna guess you probably want to seal it with some kind of a spray, a varnish or whatever, just to seal the gesso once it's dried, and then it should be ready to put back in here. And once it's in, you resolder these clips back on. So that's my art project I'm gonna have to do. So while that's drying, this here, I took some fine steel wool to it because I didn't want to do a full finish, refinish. So everything's been steel wooled, and then I took the old English scratch cover over the whole clock, and so far it actually looks a lot better than what it did. Now on the back side here, there wasn't a finish one, no stain, no nothing. I went ahead and gave it a quick coat over it. They're probably saving money not staining it or putting a finish on it, but I wanted to dress up a little bit. Nobody's gonna see it because the door is gonna be shut when you have the clock running. This here, I went ahead and used a scratch cover and did all around because it was, I don't know if it was ever stained on the back. It looks a lot better now. I got the paper glued down. I would like to, now that it's dry, maybe put a spray coat over this to help protect it from the moisture and whatnot. This side didn't turn out too bad either. I think the main thing was this thing was filthy, and now it looks a lot better. And then I obviously took these and cleaned them and waxed them. And I took these out and gave them a polish and a wax also. This dial I washed. I didn't get too carried away, and that's, in my opinion, the best I'm going to get it. And so we got her done. Beautiful as can be. Now all I have to do is clean up the glass and I can install this thing again. Brings the clock value right back to where it should be compared to the damaged glass that was in it already. Anyway. So I'm just holding the dial in there, give you an idea. I just love how this brass turned out. So here it is, the picture's in, the movement's not in yet. I do have the door lock in now. So when you're doing the glass, you got to remember possibly that the white paint you used, you might want to use something closer to the dial color so they don't stand out, so it doesn't stand out as much as that does. Just the same, I'm happy with the way it turned out, and if there is a next time, I'll remember to try to cream up the white paint. There's the original, and there's the new. Okay, I pretty much got this movement all together. The only part that's not really all together is I'm missing a gear, and I thought I found one, and it happened to be the wrong one, but this here fan doesn't turn because I need the gear that attaches to it and attaches everything else in there, and this gear that I'm missing also has a warning pin on it also. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this together again. I'm going to cut this off and leave this on the spring, because in time hopefully I'll be able to find a gear that belongs here. Otherwise the time side should work just fine. Anyway, I have everything oiled, and now I have to finish putting some of these parts back on. Oh, and I wanted to mention this here where the pendulum hooks on. This is all one piece, and then it was smashed in order to make the spring wire there. And it does have a little hole in the top with a piece of wire to keep it from falling through. So we open that up. We'll go ahead and pinch this closed again. So this doesn't fall out. And I'm going to put this on because I don't want to lose this piece. This here goes to if you need to correct the time of when it gongs. This here would be the wire you'd trip to do so. I'm not going to say it's not going to work because the gong, well, if I did make the gong work, it would be flying really fast. I might put this on backwards. So when I said backwards, it's because this needs to come out and pass this gear here so it doesn't hit it. Now, I will admit this is wobbly. The keeper on it was bent out of shape and everything else, and I bent it the best I could, but it's kind of cracked. But once this thing's once this gets fixed and is up and running, I don't think it's be that much of a problem, as long as this here is able to fall into it to keep it from so it'll still gong the correct hours that's right here. Now that I have this hooked up, this system here, I can wind this up so I can release this zip tie. There we go. That's loose, so I can go ahead and take that off without worrying about this thing exploding on me. I'm also going to put a little bit of oil right here and right here, because, and I'm going to use a toothpick because that'll reduce the drag. And this clock shouldn't make as much difference, but also because of the pressure of this wheel here, sometimes it'll start squeaking. So this should make it so it's going to be sliding right by the way it needs to, and hopefully run perfectly. Before I spill it, let's shut my oil. To me, it's tipped quite a bit. Stand it up and it stops. So we still might have to adjust this wire here, and I'll deal with that after I get it into the case. So I wanted to make a special note. This movement, I don't believe is original to this clock. And the reason why I'm saying that is because the screws that are on the top, they shove this movement so high up that when this is in the glass or attached, this made in China, it's way up and I can see the bottom opening here where it needs to be back down. These screws down below pull it down to where it should be, and none of these holes are matching up, such as the top ones. I couldn't get the screw to actually fit up in there, I guess we'll say, and have these holes line up too. Now I will admit all the screws weren't in the case holding this movement, but just the same, this here's been kind of messed up for a while, I guess. And so if I can't find a gear, maybe I'll do the same, look for a movement that might belong in this clock, such as if I can find a Chinese one or find a Japanese one that's going to come close to matching. So this is the clock. This is not the movement that belongs in here, but it's ticking nicely. I had to adjust the wire for the pendulum to work right, and I think this is a success for what I started out with. The door lock is unique in my opinion. It has that little bar that comes over and clips in the door. We got this cleaned up so now it doesn't look like plastic. Really happy with all this it turned out, and of course the new glass with the new flower in there. Now I will admit this is really white compared to this is really cream, so if that bothers you when you're mixing the paint, change your white paint to a cream paint that's going to maybe match a little closer to that. But for now, I'm very happy with this clock. I will go online and possibly look for another movement if I can't find that gear, and install a different movement like they did, but kind of try to stay at the same age. So anyway, we finally got the clock done. Little did you guys know, I was working on 2 or 3 different ones, and it's driving me crazy not being able to finish because of waiting for parts. And on this clock, I got the wrong part anyway. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching all the way through if you got this far. And until next time, God bless. And don't forget to subscribe because it's free.